Hello, everybody. I hope you're doing okay today. We are going to do some renewable energies. First, that's what this is. I guess this is week 12. How fast things are going. All right. So we're going to do renewable energies today. Don't forget you got your review sheet and you got to do your Crazy Town podcast for this. All right. There's not going to be, but you have a current event that's due this Friday, this Wednesday, today. But this isn't due till December 2nd. All right. So you got 2 weeks because coming up is week 13 would be Thanksgiving break. Okay. And then after that, we got renewable energies, renewable energies. Then we have managing our waste. And please note that the second exam, I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but the exam two is going to be here. All right. It's available December 7th and you will have a week. But we're not going to have a review sheet or any other assignment. Just read the chapter and take the second exam on this 15th week, and then we have the finals week, where I don't know if you can see this or not. This test will pop up at about 6 o'clock in the morning on the 7th, and will be available. I'll be on the 14th, and will be available until midnight. All right, on the 18th, Friday midnight. All right. So that's just a little heads up for the last weeks to go. All right. So don't forget if you're doing the Wednesday assignment, you found that right here, current event 7. Okay. Now let's get into the PowerPoint here for non-renewable energies. One of my favorite topics. All right, because we will never really get rid of fossil fuels, believe it or not. They've really been a powerful thing. So let's for us, all right, and we'll review that as we go through this section. So we're gonna talk about our energy sources overall, how we value EROI, energy return on investment concept. We'll talk about the formation of fossil fuels, the pollution of the oil supplies, the conventional and new fossil fuel sources. We'll talk about environmental, political, social, and economic impacts of fossil fuels, energy conservation, and nuclear power drawbacks. All right. So the case study for this section is the good old Marsala Shale. All right, holy guacamole! This is our backyard right here. This is happening all over here in my neighborhood. We have a new rig that just went up going after this Marsala Shale. All right, but it's all started out here in this area here in Pennsylvania because this is where the most prolific wells were, and now it's working its way down here to Pittsburgh area. Okay. Pandemic soon had some the highest producing wells in the Marshall Shale. It was a big boom for the economy. It was just going crazy. Some residents, they were making good money, but all of a sudden, some of the residents' drinking water started getting contaminated with chemicals. It was smelling. There's a movie out there called Gasland. It should be free on Netflix for you. So just Google Netflix or on YouTube even. Um, he went out there and there's a guy in there that actually lights his faucet on fire. It's crazy. All right. And this was blamed on the hydraulic fracturing, but it can never really totally um, prove that contamination. But they did settle all out of court. All right. And the company had to bring in water buffaloes to all these citizens whose well water was contaminated now. All right. So hydraulic fracturing is a simple process, or not a simple process, but it's a process of just drilling down and then you drill sideways over here. And they set off this, little tiny charges, and it cracks up all this uh, shale that's in the ground. All right, and they inject some water and sand and a whole bunch of chemicals, all right, into it, and it dissolves all that stuff in it. All of a sudden, the natural gas or the oil will come creeping up, and we can use it for our fossil fuels. All right, but that has a lot of troubles because there's a lot of waste here. All right, all this water was fresh water. When it comes back out, it's totally contaminated. We can't really use it anymore. So we try to actually re-inject that back down into the ground and say don't come back, or we let it evaporate on these ponds and then take out all the waste and go bury it and say don't come back. But fracking greatly boosts our natural gas that can be extracted from a rock formation, right? And it really ignited a boom in gas production right now. Our natural gas production's enormous, all right? And there's a huge supply, and prices are going up and down. It's very volatile industry when it comes to the prices. And I don't know, guys, what you heard about the oil. What happened during the COVID days, where it actually went negative for a while because we had all the oil. Because this fracking is also done with oil as well. Policymakers have encouraged fracking, even though passing exemptions from major federal laws such as National Environmental Policy Act and the Safe Water Drinking Act. So, you know, they used to say Biden didn't want to do fracking, but this whole fracking industry started underneath Obama and Biden's watch. It just really blew out. It really did. It really grew enormously. We got a big plant going down just the road for some plastics to make some plastics out of this natural gas we're getting around from the local area, and it really has boomed the economy. So a debate erupted in the town between the residents and the wells were impacting other residents who felt the benefits outweighed the risks of the natural gas. All right. The Pennsylvania DEP eventually fined Cabot and forced them to have, like I said, haul in some drinking water. The U.S. EPA eventually stepped in and found that 5 out of the 64 water wells were actually contaminated by Cabot. So we had to, get in there and do the research, and hopefully, in this industry, we are going to get some more investigations and close monitoring. I shouldn't say investigations, but monitoring of these wells. All right, because the EPA has to do a lot of more work on that. Because, like we said before, that they are exempt from the National Environmental Policy Act and the Safe Drinking Water Act. All right, they don't have to abide by some of those things in those laws because they're considered just a small little tiny well than not one big huge thing. Um, so sources of energy. Humanity has devised many ways to harness our renewable and non-renewable forms of energy available on our planet. Right. So we got coal, oil, natural gas, nuclear. All right, and these are all like these coal, oil, and natural gas are all of our fossil fuels. All right, or non-renewable energies. Nuclear energy, we can debate whether that's renewable or not. I think it's more just element of matter. The problem with it is um, it just goes through entropy and becomes less useful, becomes wasteful, and very dangerous for us. Right, once we try to mess around with it. Then we have biomass energy, which is living matter. Okay, this would be all your biofuels, your corn ethanols, and your algae fuels, and your wood chips to burn, and all that rigmarole. Hydropower, which is your dams. Solar energy comes in two different forms. All right, it comes in the heat and also the photolithic cells, which we'll talk about in renewables. We'll also talk about wind, geothermal, and ocean energy back in the renewable energy section. Okay, so most of Earth's energy comes from the sun. All of it, really. The sun drives the winds, it drives the water cycles, the magical plants do their thing with the photosynthesis, and they turn that sunlight into chemical energy for us to uptake. And when plants and other organisms die off, they're buried in sediments and grounds in particular conditions, and then they're stored their chemical energy, the lipid oils that they once had inside of them, are now locked in there, and they mix around with big old earth and get crushed and fermented, and all of a sudden they become our fossil fuels: the oil, the coal, and the natural gas. right? So everything that was, produced by these through photosynthesis by these plants are now what we're burning. It's just millions of year old sunlight that the plants converted into lipid oils, all right, or carbon that never decayed in the sense of coal, and natural gas is the bacteria's exhalation from degrading that stuff, and it gets caught in these rocks. There's a special bacteria called anaerobic bacteria that works on oxygen. So all this stuff, some coal that was locked in there, some trees that fell down and then turned into coal, the anaerobic bacteria ate it away, and then their exhaling is that natural gas. Okay. So we use fossil fuels for transportation, manufacturing, heating, cooking, generating electricity. It's immense. I mean, we use it for almost everything, and it's a they're very important. Believe it or not, fossil fuels are not a bad thing. They've actually helped driven the industrial revolution for us, and all these great things are brought to you by fossil fuels. Okay, having that energy. The one bad problem is that it comes with some environmental concerns that we did not address properly. And today, hopefully, we will change some of those things. So, like I said before in the very beginning, fossil fuels will never really disappear. We will always have them around. So, over 80% of our energy use worldwide comes from three different types of fossil fuels: oil, coal, and natural gas. Okay, that is the huge thing. So we need to flip this around. We need to have the oil, coal, and natural gas be 30% in the bioenergy, nuclear, hydro, renewables. Okay, this renewables only 1.4%. That needs to be, up here at 50, 60%. Right? We really need to kick these renewables into it. Okay. And you can see over here the world electricity generation. 40% is used by coal. And we're trying very hard nowadays to try to relieve that, to decrease that coal usage. Okay. So the distribution of fossil fuel reserves varies from region, and just like the waters varies from region, and temperature, precipitation, the distribution of fossil fuels is definitely different. So oil world reserves and oil world reserves. The reserves are what these countries think they have in the ground, all right, that they can feasibly get out. Okay, so Venezuela, believe it or not, leads the way at 17.6. But this is some very dirty oil. All right, this isn't the sweet crude just per se. This is some tar sands and some fracking and some very dirty stuff. But this we get a lot of our oil from Venezuela, all we used to. All right, we put some sanctions on them so we don't have it as much as we used to. Saudi Arabia second, Canada third, and you can see United States not even on this, but yet we're the number one exporter, believe it or not, of oil products. Unbelievable. Natural gas, Iran's number one, Russia number two, Qatar number three, United States. We have 4.7. We're 4.7% of the world's reserves. Okay, just a little itty bitty bit of it. All right, but we do lead in coal. We got plenty of coal, and so does China. There's a lot of coal left out there. All right. So in general, industrialized countries consume more fossil fuels than less industrialized countries. So developing countries tend to use, mature countries tend to use energy for subsistence activities, while developing countries use it for transportation, industry, and other uses. All right. So in developing countries, when they're trying to get going, all right, they just use the fossil fuels just to keep alive, heating and cooking and stuff like that. Well, we use it to get around town, right, in our cars and manufacture everything, right? So harvesting energy requires the use of heavy machinery, construction, roads, and pipelines. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it, and that's called the throughput or ecological economists like to call it throughput. So how much, what is going on as we dig everything out and bring it out of the ground and put it through and do all our different things. All right. So when we do that and add up all this stuff, this is called net energy. And that's expressed in differences between energy returned and energy invested. So net energy equals the energy that we get out of the ground minus the energy that we put in. All the roads, pipelines, waste ponds, all that stuff. Right? And then as long as we have more energy returned, we have a positive ratio there, right? So energy sources are assessed using the EROI, energy return on investment. So energy returned divided by the energy invested. So ratios rise when extraction becomes easier, right? So you get more energy returned when it's easier to get it out and more efficient, and they decrease when the resources become depleted and harder to extract. It just makes sense. The harder it is, the more expensive it's going to be, so you're going to have to invest more in, and that's going to decrease your return because you're still going after that carbon chain. And, oil's not really the energy coming out. Oil's kind of consistent, all right? Always about the same BTUs. So the EROI ratio for conventional oil and natural gas in the United States declined from 24 units of energy returned for every unit of energy we put in the 1950s to now 11 energies returned for every energy unit we put in. So we've cut this energy returned in half because we've used all that good easy oil. That was you can just drill a hole and stick a straw in it and suck it out. Now we have to do the fracking, which is more expensive. The process takes a lot more. So you can see the EROI has definitely decreased down. Okay. Enormous amounts of energy, money, and technology are now being used to extend the reach of our fossil fuels. So we're trying harder and harder. We have picked all the low-hanging fruits off the tree, and now we're trying to we have to get that ladder out and go up there and try to climb into the tree and get those apples that are a little bit harder to get. Oil and gas wells are being drilled deeper into places where they once were unreachable, so technology is allowed to do that with the Deepwater Horizon spill. Okay, we're going up to the Arctic seabeds trying to find things, and there's also this oil sand, the oil tar sands. Okay, I call them the tar sands. Some people call them the oil sands. Tar sands up in Canada. Venezuela has a lot of tar sands too. Okay. So fossil fuels are formed hundreds of millions of years ago from organisms performing photosynthesis from plants. All right. So after death, the organisms end up in an anaerobic environment, no oxygen. Okay, where the organic matter is converted by heat and pressure into the type of fossil fuels it ends up being. Either it's going to be coal, or it'll be natural gas, or it'll be oil. This whole process is done over millions of times, millions and millions of years. Okay, so you once had a woody terrestrial area, all right, and it falls down and it gets buried up, right? It becomes that coal, right? Eventually into that coal bed seam. Or it can happen in the ocean where the bacteria and stuff fall down in the bottom, gets buried up, and then you got that stuff at the end. So coal is a hard blackish substance that's formed with woody organic matter, right, compressed in a dense solid carbon structure. So they're basically kind of like old trees. And you kind of think back to the dinosaur era, you got these old trees that fall over in the swamp, and then eventually you get buried up. That coal, those trees that get buried there are basically the coal, right, that we're burning today. And we have what's called surface coal, which is primarily extracted through strip mining and subsurface mining, which is evacuated through large tunnels. And then we got um, in the Appalachian Mountains where the entire mountaintop is just blown up off. And the process is called mountaintop removal, okay, which we can do very easily. So we just take the top of the mountain, we blow up the top, and then scrape off all the dirt until we get down to the coal seam, scrape up the coal seam, and then we flatten it up, and we can either plant trees there, or put a mall there, or a movie theater, or an RDC park, whatever you want. So we also have what's called crude oil, right? And crude oil is unrefined oil extracted from the ground. So natural gas is the gas containing primarily of methane and other volatile hydrocarbons, so always going after those hydrocarbons. Then we have petroleum and oil, right, which is a function of this crude oil, a derivative of this crude oil, right. So oil and natural gas are derived from marine plankton that died and sank to the bottom. Okay, it's not like the coal um, that we have, basically trees and old organic matter. All right, so this is basically the oil and natural gases from the marine plankton. These eventually settle to the bottom in permeable rock formations, and now we just got to drill through them and suck them out. Okay. So unconventional fossil fuels are not yet widely used. So oil sands are a mixture of they're not used yet, but we are getting more and more of them. We use actually a lot of oil sands here in the United States, but around the world, Saudi Arabia is still producing their good sweet crude oil for everybody else, and same with Iraq and Iran and all that. So the oil sands are a mixture of moist and sand and clay containing about 1 to 20% bitumen, all right, which is a thick, heavy form of petroleum. It's kind of like that tar that when you put on your driveway and you seal it up, all right. That's kind of like what it looks like in consistency, all right. And oil sands form when crude oil deposits are partially degraded by bacteria. All right, so here's the oil sands. Okay, um, they're extracted through the similar process of strip mining. So we dig on down until we get to that layer of the oil sands and stick them up. And the one bad thing about this is that this is also in the tundra, all right, and the boreal forest. So we are ripping up the boreal forest in the tundra area to get to this, and we're changing that biome from, people aren't living there. We're just, taking away all the vegetation and stripping this down. And the size of the tar sands about the size of Florida, just about. I think that's the last time I heard. All right, or at least the area we can get to, and Canada is planning to. All right, but that's Canada's decision. Okay, when we like to use it, we can also use a steam solvent, kind of like a fracking kind of thing, to get it out. All right, so we have fracking techniques that can also get this out, so you don't have to do the strip mining process. So oil shale is a sedimentary rock with the organic matter that can be processed into shale oil, and this is what we do a lot of in the United States. We do have some um, oil sands, okay, but we basically do the oil shale fracking, okay. The Bakken region, they call it. And it occurs in areas where deposits are not buried deeply enough to be subjected to enough heat and pressure from the earth. All right. So the Canadian Rockies, the Rockies have a lot of this oil shale. All right. There's also what's called methane hydrates. We don't use too much of. They're found frozen methane in the ocean areas. All right. And they're solid, consisting of molecules of methane, and they're formed in sediments of the Arctic and ocean floor. So we have plenty of those. We're worried if these methane hydrates start, because they're basically frozen methane. And if it does start to unthaw, that methane is going to release, and that's going to start another positive feedback loop, driving climate change and global warming even faster and faster and faster. All right. So why don't we stop? Why don't we stop right there, and then we'll get into the economies and how economies determine how much will be extracted next time. All right. All right. So if you guys have any questions, let me know, and don't forget you got review the outlines. The last 2 weeks of outlines that are up there. All right. And if you haven't done any of your late homework assignments, get them done because you have until finals week to get those done. Okay. So we'll see you next time. I'll do the second part probably tomorrow. All right. Bye bye.